Everybody, this is Alex on the left, Tillman on the right. I'm Elliot, and welcome to Where's the Line? Today we're doing a more of a rapid fire question format. 5 minutes, time limit, switching topics. And yeah, that's pretty much how we're going to go. We're trying to keep things brief so we can make a couple clicks.
And kind of rolls along maybe with what we're talking about a little bit. I am curious about both of y'all's opinion on the state of Christianity in America. Okay, now I'm a believer. I don't align with any specific denomination, so I don't want to get into that part of it. I am a Christian, and the definition of the word Christian is to be Christ-like. So to follow the principles and teachings of Christ, the New Testament, reflecting on the Old Testament as historical components, and using that as a guiding light. I wore this shirt specifically for that statement too, and our country was built on, one could argue, Christian principles, more highly influenced by the Catholic Church at that time than the Protestant components potentially, but we had a lot of Freemasons, and America really was, the reason they came here was to get away from the Anglican Church, the English Church. So there was Protestant or Protestant, they were protesting against the church. Mm-hmm. So a country that was founded on those principles. Where is the state of Christianity today? You have 2 minutes. Good luck. You and God, man. Get it.
I mean, I have a lot of different viewpoints on Christianity, religion in general. But as far as Christianity today, I think honestly the case right now is that more and more people are pulling away from Christianity, religion overall. But you're seeing more and more people break away from religion with more and more technology and communication. And people, I believe, are questioning things differently. People are being able to read on things differently. Whether that's good information or bad information they're receiving, they are getting more information. And that information is leading them to step away from Christianity in a lot of ways. Our country is pulling further away from Christianity as well. And to be honest, I was in 6th grade, I believe, the first time I questioned the idea of in God we trust, or that all of us
one nation under God,
or one nation under God.
The pledge. Yeah.
I felt like that didn't make any sense to me when I was forced to say it in the 6th grade, and I remember writing a paper about that because I was like, well, my guy over here to my left, he's Buddhist, and why is it that he's being forced to stand up and say the pledge, where it's talking about Christianity, and he doesn't believe in that? And he's like, well, he's saying the pledge because of America, and he can mean it to his own God. Well, what if it's multiple gods? What if it's this? And I just had a lot of questions then. And to see that all these years later, it's really getting to a point of there's being a large vocal group now starting to question these things and feel they need to step away. Now, I do honestly, from my heart, feel that a lot of that is about just wanting to do what you want to do. And if you're raised Christian, there's certain guilt that you feel for almost everything that you do that brings you joy, essentially. And so you want to get that off of your back, and so you just say it's not real, and that helps you rid yourself of that guilt. But I don't know. That's some of my viewpoint on it as a whole.
All right, so I've got a lot of opinion on this. So I think that Christianity is is by and large going down in popularity, and I think that is a good thing, because I think that institutionalized Christianity causes a lot of harm to people, because it divides up into 2 sections in my mind. There are the good Christian people who follow by what I would consider good Christian principles, and there are bad Christian people who on the face of it follow those beliefs. And so the people who, they raise their kids and then their kids are incredibly messed up and they go, oh, well, all you needed to do was follow Jesus harder. Well, that doesn't really help me, does it? Now, when you've got people who are like, look, let me raise my kid like a child that I love and accept them no matter what they do, and I will introduce them and not institutionalize them, basically make it so they have to believe that this, otherwise they're not my kid. That's a toxic mentality that I think is pervasive through a lot of different people's families.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just, that doesn't pertain just to Christianity. I would apply that to across the board to any human being that would imprint their values onto another person that they're supposed to love unconditionally.
Right. So what we're really talking about is Elliot's parental issues, not
No,
Christianity.
I'm talking. But it's not just my family. My experience is not unique.
And honestly, I could speak to that as well because I feel like I was raised. Today, I would say I was raised in a cult.
Raised what?
In a cult.
A cult.
In a Christian cult is what I would say today.
And I would feel like that's appropriate for many different people as well.
Today, that's what I would say. And because the church that I was raised in is not like all other Christian churches. So I'm not saying it because it was Christianity. Right. I'm saying because of the specific church.
Right.
So much so that when I went to the church as a kid, I learned all these things and the way that they progress and the way they handle business. Cool. I stopped going around 15. I went back to this church about 2 years ago, and 30 plus, of course. So when I go back to this church, and I immediately was like, okay, I think when I came in with my wife, first I said, I think I'm in the wrong place because the dynamic of people had changed.
Right.
And then I recognized, okay, well, there's certain rules and regulations that y'all are not upholding, that y'all were upholding then. So then I wanted to go talk to the leaders. Like, hey, what's going on here? Why did this change? Why are you allowing this? This is not God. Like, this is not Christianity. What are y'all doing? Because you all raised me to believe one way. And now, over the course of essentially 20 years, the church evolved and changed. So now it doesn't even look like Christianity to me or what I knew to be Christianity. And that's began my questioning and dissolving my own Christian beliefs. Because to see how much the same church could change based on what's going on and trying to keep people around, thus keeping profit around. And so they change. Like I said, the principles change for them, but not for me.
Yeah. And that's going to have to be where we wrap it up there, because this is how
we're
going.
I mean, just a quick reference. And I think both of you are bringing up excellent points that I think need to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because the question is about Christianity and faith, not familial practices, religion. I think religion, or the practice of religion in an institutional or church setting, no matter the denomination, I'm not putting a tag on any of it, has become the deterrent. Because you're right, on Sunday morning you got people who walk in holier than thou. By Sunday afternoon, God knows what they're doing, right? And the judgment and so forth that is perceived by younger, more open-minded, more educated through the internet or whatever, people find that to be very hypocritical. So, the old saying of Christianity is just one generation from not existing anymore. I think in America there is something of a crisis for Christianity. You're right, the mega churches have moved in directions to try to appease the masses, to get the tide. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with, there's an old Southern kind of thing about if you go to this church, and you're a Methodist, and you go to this church and you're a Baptist, y'all can't like each other. It's almost like SEC football. It cracks me up. Like, you can't like them because they're that. I'm like, what is that about?
Oh, don't like Jimmy, he's Catholic.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't care where you meet God, go meet God. If that's in your field, in your back room of your house, if that's at a church. And I think that's where we're seeing the internet churches and these small other non-denominational churches are beginning to grow, and the message is out there. I would agree with both of y'all that the health of Christianity in today's America is in jeopardy.
Oh, it's a crisis,
yes,
for sure.
I agree.
Because I think you even have situations where you have these people who believe so strongly that they'll do things that I would find inherently hypocritical or sinful. Example that I know is a controversial one is the people who protest outside abortion clinics. there are some very sinister tactics that they do to these women that are already in a very difficult position in their lives.
Yep.
Like a guy who has a doctorate in theology will stand there in scrubs, and women will pull up and they'll assume he works there, and he'll say, "Oh, I'm Doctor blah blah blah. Oh, you need to go to the hospital right there. I'll go with you." And then all of a sudden, this woman who has this guy has no reason to be there except for the fact that he's protesting, is now going to try and convince this woman to no longer have an abortion. I find that inherently deceitful.
Yes.
Because he's not telling her he's not a medical doctor, he is a religious doctor. He has a doctorate in religion. I find that.
I mean, I think in that situation you're talking about extreme, and.
But they happen.
Well, no, I know, and those are the ones. It's kind of like every other thing gets exploited over the internet, and then that's what people see, and it turns them away from Christianity. I think, whatever your faith is we do need to realize. I mean, we've said this before. The principles of Christianity, kind of hard to say it's bad.
Well, no,
I mean, thou shalt not kill. I think we can all get on board on that.
The basic principles, and the reason I'm saying basic principles is for the people who have basic knowledge of Christ or the Bible, they the things that they would know, the principles that they would know of, those are all good things. Those are inherently good things. They are more structure. The most difficult part for me as I went through my process was me knowing this is a good thing in general. Like the camaraderie, the family element, the acceptance, the fellowship, to be able to help each other and build. Those are all good things. To also recognize the things that you shouldn't do, even if you don't want to call them sin. If you're doing these things, they're going to 9 times out of 10 result in bad things in your life. Yeah. So the basis is great, but the manipulation that works around that is devastating.
The principles but the practice is
yes. And that's the problem. And I had to share this a couple of times with some friends. Is telling them, hey, you have to separate people. Essentially, you have to separate these people from the actual principles. Mm-hmm. You can't expect that each individual person to be perfect because they're within the church. Well, you can't even expect the preacher to always conduct himself in the perfect manner or to be the perfect way. You have to be here for yourself, which has led to not only myself and people I know of, but many of people just trying to find alternative churches, essentially. Mm. Where it's like, hey, I still want to read the Bible, I still want to believe in God, but I don't want to be part of all this extra that comes about. To where you wind up sitting in your home by yourself studying the Bible with just your wife and kids. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. But, from what I know of faith, and I'm not going to quote a lot of stuff, put not your faith in man is what it says. So, your faith should be in your belief, Christ, right? And important to point out that we all fall short of the glory of God every day. We all are sinful. We talked about this before, that we're fallen in the flesh. We will resort to primitive components. You use the wolf pack kind of things, or if someone finds that doing bad benefits them in some way, socially, financially, emotionally, they may continue to do it. What is the Old Testament refers to a plumb line. Do you know what a plumb line is? It's you hold, like in the old days, they would put a rock on a string and it would hang straight down, and that gives you straight, right? And then they would have a bowl with a line, and it would show them level. And the way that they would build, in the Old Testament, build rock walls, is they would have a plumb line. So it would hang. If all the rocks touched that line, you knew it was straight up and down. It wouldn't fall over, right? Mm-hmm. And so the reference there is that what is the plumb line by which you measure yourself? Is that likes on Facebook? Is that interactions on YouTube and subscriptions? Or is that by some doctrine or principle that you pull from what you have accepted as what you're going to believe? And I think if we spent more time thinking about our own plumb lines, like what you're advising people, do you. Don't necessarily allow, I mean, you can attend church because you benefit the fellowship and everything else, but do you and set your plumb line. If we set our plumb line at Christ, we're going to fall short. But if we set our plumb line at a Facebook like, where are we going to end up, right? And so that's where a lot of that makes me question the health of Christianity today. And for me, that I would want people to know that it is time to reinvest in that. I think countries that, our country in particular, in moments of crisis, post-pandemic, the social unrest that we have, people tend to turn back to faith out of the other side of that. And I hope that we do that and that we can all model what you're talking about. And Elliot, what you're talking about, pointing out that that's bad. Whatever that behavior is bad. That is not what Christ would do. And the Christian faith can be inclusive. It is not exclusive by nature.
And I think it's funny that most people, when they have this pointed out, I think the example that you said last week was where or maybe a few weeks before, but it was basically somebody who has a problem with the identity of their child. You know, their child is gay or trans or any of the any non-mainstream Christian ideas, right? They're like, fix my kid, and you're like, the problem's not with the kid, the problem's with you.
Correct.
I feel like most people, when they're confronted with that, can handle that, but I don't feel like a lot of people put that looking glass up to want to like invest themselves or investigate themselves.
No, it's not the nature of people to self-evaluate.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. That's something
because I'm right.
I learned in life. Yeah.
Well, I'm very capable of convincing myself I'm right about anything. Mm-hmm. That's why I hope my plumb line stays out there to help me be wise and
give you something to check.
Right, humble enough, not prideful, but humble enough to say, okay. And I know we've gone over on this one, but it's a good point.
Necessary. We kind of been trying to get to this a bit as well, and we'll do it more often actually. Well, more at least. But yeah, I guess I'll move on to the next.
Yeah, all right. So Fast and Furious 9 came out now.
I would rather talk about Quentin Tarantino than that.